Good evening to all of you and namaskaram. I am Nirupama Vaidhyanathan. I run the Sankalpa School of Dance here in Fremont, and I'm the former editor of India Currents magazine. I learned under Guru Swami Malai Rajaratnam and Kalanidhi Narayanan before moving to the US many years ago. And I'm so delighted to be with fellow panelists, all of whom have had distinguished careers and decades of interest, learning, teaching, and performing in this art form. And so we are all gathered today to talk about something that brings a lot of excitement in all of us, which is dance. And we are talking about how do we kindle this lifelong interest in dance in the next generation of learners, and what are some of the strategies that each one of them has tried, which makes this process of learning and teaching much more enjoyable and one which others will carry on. So before I get started with all of that, which is quite exciting, I'd like to ask Mythili Kumar to talk about the very, very well-known Abhinaya Dance Company, its 40th year celebrations, and to talk a little bit about herself. So Mythili, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Once again, we request that other than the panelists, everybody else, please shut off your video. Nobody gets disturbed and distracted. Thank you so much. As she said, I'm Mythili Kumar. I'm the artistic director of the Abhinaya Dance Company, and I started teaching here in January of 1980. And as most of you are aware, last week, we were supposed to celebrate our 40th anniversary over 2 days, 18th and 19th. On the second day, we were going to have this panel. And one of the panelists, Nirmala Madhava, it was going to be a panel of Bay Area dance teachers. But I'm so happy that Viji Prakash is representing the rest of California and I'm as happy that she's joining us today. And the reason this panel discussion was planned was to enlighten our alumni who would have been performing and who would have been attending, about other students of dance teachers, and amongst ourselves also. We wanted to enlighten ourselves about how to keep this art perpetually in a student's life. And so the next person to talk is Katherine.
Hello, I'm Katherine Kunhiraman. Kunhiraman and I started Kalanjali 45 years ago, and have I felt that it was a good success, and I'm continuing it after his death. And we had our original training in Kalakshetra, and then I also worked with the Dhananjayans for many, many years. And I have continued to keep touch with India and have exchange with all our colleagues and teachers from Kalakshetra and from the Dhananjayans. So that's our life. We have classes in Berkeley, Sacramento, and Lafayette, with hosts of students in each place. And I would like to introduce Viji Prakash as our next panelist.
Thank you, Katherine. Hello, everybody. Mythili, thank you for doing this. This is exciting to be with all these wonderful people on this panel. I've known Mythili for so long. Actually, just to share with all of you, they even gave us their house key when we were on tour. And we lost the key, of course, but that's the relationship we have with this wonderful lady and all the dancers that were on the panel. I started Shakti around the same time as these lovely ladies did, somewhere in 1977, 78. I think it was fragile at that time because I was performing a lot. So around the 80s, 1981, 82 is when I really strategized the Shakti School of Bharatanatyam in Los Angeles. I've been in LA all my life. I love it here. And I have 5 branches of the school. We have a dance company. We perform, reach out into the community. I love teaching. I love my students. I love the dance. I've learned with the gurus of the Rajrajeshwari Bharatanatyam Kala Mandir in Bombay. And I've also studied with Guru Kanakrele at Nalanda for many years, though I opted to make Bharatanatyam my love. So having said that, from LA here, on to you, Indu.
Namaskaram. Thank you, Mythili, for making me part of this wonderful panel of artists. I'm Indumathy Ganesh. I'm a student of Guru Padma Shri Chitra Vishweshwaran. I have been in the Bay Area since I got married in 1988 and started my school a few months after in April of 89. And I scheduled to celebrate my 30 plus years of dancing and teaching in the Bay Area in September. I don't know with this COVID situation, I don't know what is going to happen. And as Viji Prakash rightly said, I love dancing. That is my entire life. I breathe the dancing, I should say. I love the children that come to learn from me. I enjoy it as much. I hope they enjoy learning from me.
Wonderful. Thank you for those introductions. I wanted to reach out to Viji to talk about, the pedagogical tools that you have used in the Shakti School, the ways of dance instruction, and some of the strategies that you think have worked with you and your students in terms of this lifelong goal, the goal of, the running a marathon, to say, to learn this art form and to be able to persist and keep this up. So what are some of the strategies that you think have worked for you, Viji?
I think I love it so much, and I want whoever is connected with me to love the dance as much as I do. So if I see a student kind of dwindling out, I kind of get them back into the dance if they're good and if they're leaving for some reason or they're getting diverted for some reason. I think for me, one-on-one, not one-on-one, but dancing directly with the student has always been the way. It's only with this COVID-19 thing that I even did one line online, and I used to be so cynical about this online thing. And but it is one-on-one, and it is, I think, keeping a sense of enthusiasm, a sense of excitement about the dance. And I think it's only because I'm excited, at least this works for me, that I'm able to share what I feel is important for them. So when I teach, I'm not a theoretician. I teach how to dance, how I learned to dance, how I want them to learn how I learned. And I kind of focus on the technique and interpreting stories and doing things like the way my gurus taught me, but also have tried to do things that are different. We've had dance camps that have come in, great dance masters from different varieties of schools of dance, so to say, who are not Tanjore, C.V. Chandrasekhar, Kiran Subramaniam, so Ajit Bhaskaran Das, people who are not in the Tanjore Bani, so to say, but have exposed my students to the beautiful art form of Bharatanatyam. So I think those camps are really wonderful. Going to India after Arangetrams and touring in India is very inspiring. And I do take on crazy projects like doing Cinderella, Nutcracker, things that are not in the traditional norm. I do try that with the students, and I feel it's important. I feel it becomes my responsibility to give them opportunities to dance, so that they can continue to practice. I think performance is a huge part of it, whether it's community or what we do. It's just important for them to keep practicing.
Wonderful, wonderful, Viji. Katherine, what are your thoughts on some of the strategies, the pedagogical tools that have worked with you?
Well, when we first came, we were trained in a school that didn't accommodate this as a hobby. So it was a sort of a different attitude, and I had to abandon that attitude very quickly because I realized that it was so intimidating to have a didactic manner with the students that I had to take them by the hand and lead them as a companion in the quest to learn dance. And that's worked out very well for me. I teach a classical syllabus in a classical way, but I also make it playful and fun and interesting. And I'm ready to break the moment with a little politics or a little ancient history from some other culture to make it a fulfilling experience for them. I know how intimidating it is to have someone crush you down. And I know that one little thing, insulting a person for being two left hands and two left feet, may scar them for life. So I take great care not to scar them, and I have to bite my tongue many times, as I'm sure all of you do. But I've also let them go to India to study with people there, of course, with my guidance, and we do have a branch there actually. And then I've sent them to the camp that the Dhananjayans used to run in Virginia, which was a great asset for them. And sometimes the camp was mostly my students. And I wanted them first to fall in love with the Dhananjayans, which they all did. And then also to get the experience of dancing every day, which is something that we cannot really give them here.
Okay. Indu, what are your thoughts on this, and how have you tried to inculcate this love? And before we go on, Indu, I'd like to remind all the participants who have come on to please mute to shut off the video. So if you go down to the bottom left corner, you will see a screen. You will see a button which says stop video. We would like only the panelists to be on video. Thank you so much. So Indu, can you please share your thoughts?
Yes, like I agree with both Viji Akka and Katherine Akka when they said that we cannot be too strict with how we deal with the children. Like I tend to have a more maternal approach, because with my personality, I don't think I can get angry with anyone. So I tend to play around with them. The most important thing is to instill the love for the art when they are 5 and 6. I believe that if you instill that love for dancing when they are young, and then over the years with training, and if you nurture that love for the art form, I think we can have that sustained interest. We can expect for them to continue it beyond. So with love, with their passion, and with our guidance, I think we can go ways, and we can hopefully, we will want them to come back to us. So, and it has worked in my case. I have a lot of my children coming back even after their school years and college years, wanting to learn. And I believe that apart from the dance part of it, it's the love I have instilled in them for the art form. It's, as Viji Akka and Katherine Akka said, I want them to love it as much as I do, and we go the extra mile to make sure that they love it as much as we do.
Mythili, what has worked for you, and what are your thoughts on this?
I think they have covered a lot of the basic points. One is that, as Viji said, and Viji and Indu have said, that they have to love the art. And if they do not love the art form, then, they're not going to go anywhere with it. So, I think the first thing that I usually try to find out is if they like movement at all. If they do not like movement and they want to sit in one corner and they do not want to practice at all from the beginning, I feel it's, we just have to wait till they are ready for it. So, in terms of age, I don't take them too young. I used to say 8 years old before, and then I, went down to 6 because Rasika's friends at that time when she was learning were 6 years old. So I started for 6 years old. But I felt that they needed to develop to a point where they love it, and I wouldn't do their arangetrams until they had reached their proper height for their age, as well as they had the maturity, as I said last week also, that they had the maturity to do a Sringarapada. So when they did that only, I would let them do their arangetram. So I was much stricter than all of you, I think. I've been scolding my students quite a bit. I guess what I wanted was, this perfection. It's an elusive thing. So I keep wanting to have them be perfect, more perfect, and more perfect. So I keep, making them drill it into themselves that every hand move gesture should be perfect, every mudra should be perfect. So it does mean that I'm a little more critical than all of you are. But I agree with Viji that the performance opportunities that they get, that is the one that allows them to keep coming back. So in our case, we had a lot of productions, school productions, just like Viji had. Right from the time they were young, they would be in school productions, and then after their post-arrangetram, they all had to step up because I was the only senior dancer, and they had to dance with me, so they all had to step up a little bit. And so in many of our productions, like Gandhi and Life of Anmacharya, I used all these young kids, pre-arrangetram and post-arrangetram, and gave them, and I tried to inspire them with these different productions and performance opportunities that I was giving them. But performance opportunities at that time, when we, in the 80s and all, was quite a lot for them in the community. There was, they would dance in the Kannada, Kuta, Telugu, and Tamil and Malayalam associations and all that. There were so many opportunities. But I don't know if you've heard of the Boston Marathon, but the moment the Boston Marathon is announced and is open at the stroke of midnight, within a few minutes, it's completely, the enrollment is closed. In the same manner now, in temples, if they've announced a Shivaratri and a Navaratri, but if you do not get there right and respond to them immediately, you don't get a chance, and the students don't get a chance to perform. That much, competition is there. The competition is really fierce. So community performances have gone down much more. And I used to take them to India. I used to take them to India to perform in the 90s, and then 2002 they went. And then I just got tired of the scene in India. So that was inspiring to many of them. But I couldn't keep it up. But I totally agree with Viji that if we want to take them to India and have them go on a temple tour, those are things that might inspire them. But I don't know if they have the time. I don't have the time. I don't know if they have the time.
Yes, okay. I wanted to also, I just wanted to share a small incident, which was the only time my teacher, Rajaratnam sir, and I spoke about how we teach. So when I was a teenager, and a very enthusiastic teenager at that, I was helping teach an Adavu class when he was resting in the room next to the classroom. And, I was trying to correct, like Mythili was saying, trying to correct the hands, the feet, the eyes, everything all at the same time. And so after a little while, he called me and he said, "Are you trying to correct everything on the same day?" And then he said, "If you correct everything today, they're not going to come back tomorrow. So make sure that you correct one thing today and one thing next week, because the most important thing is we want them to come into the class next week, and we want them to come in smiling." So that was a good reminder to me about how gently and how patiently he had corrected me. And that's one thing I think about as I continue to teach my students. I wanted to also talk about the narratives in classical dance and how this helps them, build those cultural connections. A couple of you spoke about the India trips, but for sure, teaching children in America and having children come from different family backgrounds where, talk about religious stories or narratives. Some children know so much that sometimes I have to tell them, no, now you cannot raise your hand. Somebody else in the class has to speak. So some children come from a background like that, and some children come from a background where these things are not as, spoken about. So I wanted to reach out to Indu and see how do we extend these, how do we teach so that these cultural connections are extended? What have your experiences been, Indu?
Well, apart from teaching them at the very beginning, when they are 5 and 6 and 7, when they are just starting on their training, we don't teach them the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, but we do teach them the hand gestures. We teach them our facial expressions, right? How we make it relevant to them. It will be, they all like to jump around at that age. So if you're taking Simhamukam, you say, dart your eyes here and there and jump, learn to leap. And they all love to do that. And immediately, say, we do Alapadmam to show beauty and say, hey mom, you're very beautiful. So to the minute you say, bring the everyday comments and say your friend is so beautiful, immediately there's a sparkle in their eyes and say your sari is very nice, or the ice cream is very tasty, yum yum yum. And small bring relevance to what they know at that point. And then as they grow older and as they start learning padams and Sanchati Pavams and Varnam, automatically teach about stories of Devi being born to Malayadwaja and, Muruha, the Arupade Veda stories come in. So there's a lot of mythological references in our Padams and in our Varnam Sancharis that you can teach them. I think that's the cultural aspect of it. And of course, the first thing I tell them is, when I see Chitraka, even to this day, I cannot sit down on the floor or without her being on the floor. That's how much respect we were taught. And those are the small points I try to raise with them. So the cultural, the traditional aspect of it, right? You don't sit down stretching your legs in front of me. You fold your legs and sit the Indian way. So these are all small things that because I don't think any parent tells them all that anymore. So yeah, I think it is us teaching them this Indian art, and which has so much relevance to our cultural traditions too. Small things like that. Do not sit stretching your legs, or they all come in with their hair loose, and that's the trend right now. I said, do not walk in with your hair loose. Braid it into a braid and then start your dancing and put a pottu on. So I said, you don't go to swimming classes with pajama kurta, so why are you walking in with a pant and shirt? So learn to be in the Indian attire. So doing dancing, you wear this. When you go swimming, you wear your bikini and top to go swim. So if you give them pointers like that, I think they relate to that. And as they are growing up, you tell them stories. And of course, there are a lot of Chinmaya mission classes happening, Balavihar classes happening. And as you rightly said, Niru, there are children who know everything, and there are children who do not know anything, for whom we need to reiterate the same stories or incidences again.
Okay. Viji, what are your thoughts about the cultural connection and how we foster that through the dance?
I was just thinking, as Indu was talking, my community is quite diverse. I have, I try to make this an art form that is spiritual and not necessarily religious. So for me, that's where I come from. Yes, there are stories embedded in the integral, in the what we study, what we learn, and songs that are sung and portrayed. But initially, I think I bring everybody together and we chant. And I tell them, don't worry about what we are chanting, just let's all chant. A way for you to memorize how to get the syllables, the Sanskrit syllables together. Don't worry about the meaning right now. Just learn to chant and come together first as a community of dancers. And I think when they come together first to move, then I kind of try to bring in stories, not stuff they can find on Google Acharya, but for example, if they had to focus, I would bring in the story of Arjuna when he was shooting the arrow, and I would tell them, there was, because a lot of them don't even know Ramayana, they don't know Mahabharata, they don't know the stories that we think they should know. How? Once a week they come in here, they do something, next they're gone for piano, soccer, It's like a rolling thing. So how in that one class am I going to give them, like your Guruji said, Nirupama, how am I going to give them so much? And besides, once they walk out of this class, all the, well, you're not doing Aramandi, everything has gone out the other year. So it takes a little bit of first they have to enjoy that sense of community, being together, jumping, warm-ups, whatever. Then I tell them to count in their own language. Half the time they don't, they say their language is Spanish. And then I make them count 1 to 10 in their languages, or they have to go home and they have to learn a sentence from their parents in, you know, the lingo that's spoken at home. Just little things to break them into this. And sometimes we've done stories of girls who have done the Ramayana as a Varnam, and they don't know the characters. So I make them sit and write, not type, write the whole story so it sits in their head. So it's a little bit of a you know, a training ground, even for me, as to what makes it joyful for them. I think that if that joy is sustained, of course it's painful. And again, like Mythili said, there is a conflict, right? How do you make it happy and joyful and have a good time and I have candy for you at the end of class with this is strict, this is aramandi, this is sitting, you keep it up for 10 seconds or that's it, we do it 100 times. Where do you draw those lines? You know, so I'm still learning and it's just an evolving process, I think. But I think in trying to keep it maybe a spiritual practice and a fun practice and a community practice and a together of love practice, it makes it easier. And then when the stories come later, they are supposed to look it up, or we talk about, you know, why Rama was mean. Was he really mean? You know, with the older kids. But with the younger ones, it's look at Arjuna's focus. Why are your eyes going around? You know, he looked at the eye of the bird. Come on, keep the same focus. That kind of stuff. I don't know if I made sense.
No, absolutely. It was very interesting, Viji. Mythili, what about you? How do you think the cultural connections? I think you spoke about it briefly when you earlier about India and all of that, but do you have anything to add about how we foster that?
The cultural connection, you know, first I want to talk about the religious connection, because we know that Bharatanatyam is, you know, rooted in the Hindu mythology and Hindu religion. So, but I have had diverse students like Viji and others have said. I've had non-Indians who are Christians. I even had a Muslim student from Bangladesh. So when I teach them, when I first teach them, even if I teach them the Angikam Slokam, I do not teach it as bowing to Shiva at all, because Shiva is the infinite. If it's the infinite universe, the moons and the stars, I don't even show this because this is specific to Shiva. I say this moon and the stars are the ornaments of the universe. And the universe is, you know, he's there in the universe. I mean, not he, the infinite being, formless, is there in the universe. So I have them pray to that, use that verse, not as a Shiva verse, but as a, you know, to the infinite being. So I start with that. And then when we teach, you know, all the Adavas and right up to Alari Pujatishwaram, there is no question of any God coming in at all. But the moment, you know, so it's only technique. So they have to focus on the technique, getting their bodies to move. And then when it comes to the first piece, let's say Ganesha Kautam, then they need to know about the elephant-headed god. And I have to explain that. So what I usually tell them, that this language of gestures, as Indu said, is a means of expressing some things, a means of expressing lines of lyrics and poems and all that. And once they learn that, even though we are using all these basic pieces of all the gods in the Hindu mythology, Vishnu, Krishna, whatever, we use that only to know how to use them in an expressive, you know, how to express, how to do abhinaya, you know, carry this expression towards the audience. Yeah. And once they learn that, they can, when they go ahead, they can take any poem they want, they can take any language they want, they can take any, you know, God or, you know, Jesus Christ or whatever, anything they want they can do, because they have learned the art of expression. So I focus on that first. And then when it comes to stories, like you said, you know, I remember my grandmother used to make us all sit around her and give tairshadam, and we'd make a kui, which is a little thing, and put a little bit of sambar in it and eat it, and she'd keep telling us stories. Now those days are all gone. Even I don't do it for my grandsons. I don't But so that was the way we learned stories. And so, like, if they are part of Chimya Mission and all that, and Swadhyaya, Gujarati Swadhyaya, and they've read a lot of Amar Chitrakatha books, then they know about, in mythology. And if they don't know it, then now the internet is there. So I really focus on them. If I do one Rama and I've said Vibhishana, and then this girl looks at me and I said, you know who Vibhishana is? And if they don't, then they have got their homework is to go read up the Ramayana and come. And that's the way they pick up on the stories, even if they didn't do it at home, or nobody at home has told them, or they haven't read anything on their own. So also in the annual school performances, when we do things, we're hoping that we explain enough so that they get the education, the cultural education that they need to get to understand this art form through these school performances, through our productions. They actually use it as an education for culture as well. In a sense, it's I would love to do short bhajans and little things to keep them interested, but I feel the fundamental technique of Bharatanatyam, the adavu, the rigor of practice, the rigor of the adavus, the knowing the different ways and use the hand gestures, all that is very important. So I want to first get that into them before I move on to any pieces or anything.
Yeah.
I should say that their cultural connection is more, first it's in the form of play groups, when they are all getting together in order to be in different play groups, and that turns out to be a practice group. And so that helps them. And then further on that goes away, and they have to get their own interest, because it's after all a solo art form.
Yeah, so what you did say was to reiterate what we all know, which that dance is a language. So you are learning a language and how to use the language to finally tell stories, whatever the stories may end up being. Katherine, would you be able to talk about, and I'm sure you have a very unique perspective on this, Katherine. Would love to hear what you think.
Well, I was very pleased to have gone through 3 years of dance class in Calcutta before I went to Kalakshetra. So all the things of giving with the left hand and sticking the legs out in front of the teacher, all that was taken care of by the time I got there. So I was like the model foreign student. And but as a teacher, because I don't have a religious background myself, I'm sort of open to all of it, and the most abstract form of religion as well as the most literal. And that's what I try to project to the students, and they find their own path in it. I'm very, very structured in going on a traditional course and starting with all the adavas and the alarepu and jatiswaram and going on like that through a traditional repertoire. Our main goal was to preserve I guess it was the Kalakshetra repertoire through the 1960s and into the 70s, and that was what we offered to our students. So I think they get a good background of it, and I look for them to be mathematical and geometric in all their things and understand the science of it. I want them to value their own heritage as being very scientific and something for the ages. It's not just something for a dance class or for an Indian. It's a universal value that they should be imbibing and passing on.
I know.
I don't mind how they do it. I don't mind how they do it, and they can play with it. And if they learn all the gestures and they've learned several varnams and say a basic margam plus some more pieces, they should have the language in their hands, and that is their language. Just like if the better you know grammar and vocabulary, the better you can express yourself, make your words say what you mean them to say. And it's the same thing with any art form.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you, Katherine Akka. I wanted to point, remind everyone that I'm getting, I can see a lot of questions coming in from those who are listening to our discussion. So for the last couple of questions, I'd request you to keep your answers brief so that we can get to everyone's questions and have a truly enriching discussion for ourselves, which benefits those who are listening to us as well. So, Indu, I'll start with you. What are some of the other ways that you have used to foster interest and to keep that lifelong interest in dance, Indu?
Well, apart from learning items, whether be it padams or varnams or tilanas, right, there are very many other aspects in a dance production, right? So to get them involved, uh, making them aware of the various other aspects is like when I teach them how to write the lighting cues for a program. You know, I teach them, you know, it enhances, lighting enhances, and that is a big part of any performance. And stage management, right? Somebody has to guide what is happening. You know, have a walkie-talkie and talk to the light technician, to the sound technician, and if the girl is not ready in the green room, make sure that she is ready. So I talk about all of these aspects and train them, you know, in helping me out gradually. You know, they assist, of course, initially with an experienced person handling the lights and the sound and stage management. We get excited about all of these various other things apart from the dance part of it. So they get more involved, whether in their friends' arrangetrams, helping each other out, each of them helping out one another in their respective arrangetrams, or coming and helping me out when I have a show, so that you know, my job is it's lessened. Like they take complete ownership, by which time they know all these aspects of, you know, drawing up the light cues, and this is where I need the spotlight, and split the stage in half, and I want it here, I want it there, and you know, if the mridangam is too loud or the violin is too loud, to make sure that, you know, go tell the right person. And then of course stage management, make sure the dancers are all there, assigned in their respective spots to walk in at the right cue, and all of those things. You know, it makes it very interesting for, you know, a high schooler, because all of these they learn if they are doing theater and theater in school, right? They have to do their stage props, they have to do their costumes and manage their costumes, and all of which. So I think they are more than capable in handling all of this for us too. And the minute you give them the responsibility, they are grown up to handle it and do a good job, and they are very, very excited about it.
Okay, Mythili, what are your thoughts on any other ways or techniques that you have used?
Mythili, you're on mute.
Sorry. Try to remember that. I think a lot of us will do the same thing. Is what we do is, after they do their arrangetrams, we actually ask them to be teaching assistants. So this being a teaching assistant, you know, helping the senior teacher, and that's what we did with our gurus in India too. We would sit with them, you know, and be there when they were teaching other people. Like you said, you would help with your teacher, you know, train the other students. So being a teaching assistant, they become kind of role models for the younger children, and it gives them confidence, gives them and if they're encouraged to dance for sure, and so it makes them continue to their dancing. And also it you know, there are some disadvantages with this, but right now we have like 4 teaching assistants assisting 4 senior teachers, and we keep you know, they keep looking forward to it after their arrangeter, to go and you know, teach these young students, because they know they'll be, you know, everybody will look up to them and all that. So that's one aspect. Well, the other aspect to keep them, foster their interest, is their family. If their families have to be completely involved, we have some of these prime families, I would call them, who father, mother, everybody is involved in it, and they're all involved in helping us and volunteering and all that. Then those, even when they go off to college and come back, they have this incentive to come back and be part of us and continue to learn. But if the father is going off, you know, golfing or something else, and is never there to see the performance, you know, a lot of it just kind of then goes away. So the family involvement, I think, is really, really important. It really sustains their interest for a long time.
Katherine Akka, what would you say?
Well, I encourage them to perform. We have an annual program, I think everybody has that, where everybody, including the people who just hardly know a few adavas, get a chance to share with their families. And it's a way of educating the families about the process so they don't have false expectations and they understand that it is a long process and that it does have incremental improvements as you go through year by year. A lot of our students who are seniors who finished our Angitram go to India and perform. So, and I don't mind if they do it on their own. I don't even mind if they go out from me and perform with other dance companies or other projects, because I don't produce productions except for that annual program. So it's a good experience for them to be able to go off and do that. And it gives them confidence in themselves. And this is not just about creating great dancers. It's also about sharing it, being a missionary in the jungle sometimes to spread out awareness of Indian culture beyond snake charmers and tigers and lepers and beggars. And I want India to have a good image with people. And anybody just seeing a charming little child with a beautiful costume, that's going to do a lot for India's reputation. And I think that's valuable because most people don't even know where India is. They really don't. They don't even know where Kansas is. So how can they know where India is? So I think these young ambassadors are the future, and I encourage them as far as they'll take it. I'll be with them on that journey.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear, Katherine, because I think all of us are united on that idea that we will be there with the students who want to take it forward. I think everyone is excited about mentoring that group of youngsters. Viji, do you have anything to add? Again, I have to request everyone to keep your responses short because I'm reading through some very, very interesting questions and I want to try and get to all of them.
I was just saying, I'm fine. I do exactly what everyone here said. All the girls who are teaching in my school are my students who have been with me since age 5, 6, whatever. Same thing, ipso facto. Go ahead for the next question.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So I wanted to talk about, now we have had, different universities and other teaching institutions come to America and have academic certificates being given out to students. Who go through a theoretical course, a syllabus that is given to them, which they study. So I wanted to get your thoughts on whether that added any value in your opinion. And the other thing was what you thought about participation in competitions. So for this one, I'll start with Katherine Akka about participation in competitions and what you thought about having these academic certificates.
I don't send my students for competitions. If they go on their own, I can't forbid them, but I don't believe in them. I've seen too much corruption in them, and I've seen too much unnecessary competition between the kids, and there's only one gold medal. And I think it's debilitating to the students to go for these things and then not win in them. This is a winning community, not a community that is going to take things in balance. My father was an artist and he always was asked to judge competitions for children's art and he always refused. He said there's absolutely no prize that is worth condemning the others. And in fact, one interesting thing was in India, they used to have, I don't know if they still do, this competition, not a competition, but a art fair in India where they'd lay out papers and pens, paints for everybody. And all these kids would sit down and paint and they'd do fantastic things. I think it's Shankar's Weekly conducted it.
Yes, that's true.
And one year they did an experiment. They divided the field in two, and one side of the field was told, whoever does the best painting will get a prize. And the others were just left to do whatever they wanted to. And the same inspiration and imagination and brilliance was shown in the ones who were left to their own devices. And the ones that were told that they would get a prize, they were trying to imagine what the judges were looking for, and it was stilted and self-conscious, and it didn't come out. And I think that's a perfect example of why these competitions are really almost a fraud thing.
Okay. Mythili, what do you say? That's such a wonderful example that you gave, Katherine Akka. Mythili, what are your thoughts?
Mute.
Unmute yourself, Mythili.
I keep forgetting. I have to share a story here. In the 1990s, early 1990s, there was this Bala Saraswati Award competition in New York, and I sent some students in 1 year, and Radhika won a prize. Next year, Satyashri won a prize, and so did Sonali and Sudha. They also got prizes. So they all came back, and then the third year they didn't hold it anymore. It was being held by a young dance enthusiast, and rumor was that he was doing it in order to get connections to get a good wife. And so that didn't, I don't think that's true. I think it's true that he got so much controversy from all different directions that he had to stop it. So that's one thing that happens in a competition, is that, you might send it, but actually I'm in two minds about it, only because the whole world, we have competitions. We go to Ethnic Dance Festival, our audition is a competition. It's nothing else but a competition. You go to dance in the Music Academy, for instance, Viji's daughter Mythili got the Spirit of Youth Dance Festival Award, and it was a competition, and it just took her somewhere, way up there, where she is now. So competitions, I mean, they select the best dancer, the best violinist, they do that, and it's there in our lives, so I'm really in two minds about it, that maybe it is a stepping stone for some, but for many, like you said, it will be a total discouragement. They may be the best talented people, but they will not take it forward just because they got the third prize or they didn't get a prize at all. So there are, I think, two aspects to this, and it depends on, you have to balance it. If the person can balance it and is mature enough to handle it, then it may be a good thing for them. For instance, the Cleveland Tyagaraja competitions have helped a lot of musicians become professional musicians now, for whatever reason. But they're, not that the others are not good, but it just was a stepping stone, which is a little bit of encouragement for those at the risk of discouraging others. So there's two sides to it. Yeah. So that's what I feel at the end, even though I don't like to send them to competitions anymore, but I just thought I'd put that out.
Yeah. Viji, what are your thoughts?
No competition, no certificates. Even Mythili, she went and danced in the middle of the school year because it was Spirit of Youth. And honestly, when we found out, oh, she won, we said, what? Won what? So she just went there to have fun and just enjoy it. I don't advocate competition at all. I think the children do enough of it when they go to college. Every team is fighting with another team, But I think it in that sense, it keeps them dancing when the dancers go to college. But this certificate of theory certificate, I don't know enough theory to get a certificate. I myself don't have one. I don't know how I can give my kids competition. I don't know. I feel it's not a fair judgment. It's very subjective, biased, and it puts people down, like Katherine said, demoralizes you. And I think where Mythili has taken herself, it's purely, not just you, Mythili, but my daughter, Mythili, it's purely her hard work that has taken her where it has taken her. So no competition for me, Mama.
Indu, any thoughts to add to that?
No, it is just, as all of you rightly said, I don't send my children. It's a lot of work for a 5-minute competing level. And art is supposed to be to de-stress yourself and your students, as they all go through enough, enough of that stress from school, having to excel in their AP biology and AP chemistry, and you don't want to add one more of this in their package, and trying to, I would encourage them to do their very best in class and strive to do better each week than the class week before. So that we place enough stress on that already. So I don't advocate competitions as well, because I did send them initially, but then the
Just,
children were very, very highly demotivated because it's not judged on the same level of complexity of an item. So I think that is not the right way to go about it. Each style is beautiful as is, and we cannot judge apples to oranges.
Okay, so I'm going to, turn over to the questions. I have to say, I'm reading through so many interesting questions. And for the questions, I think based on all of your responses so far, I'm just going to direct the question to one person on the panel who I think would, where your thoughts would be most helpful, and not have each question directed to all of the panelists. So I'll start with Asha's question, which is, how important is the level of learning and maturity in performing for an arangetram? Is it related to age or high school? I remember that Mythili already said that she would like for each student to be able to have the maturity to do a Shringara Padam before they do their arangetram, which is something that resonated with me, Mythili. That's the same thing that I try and do as well, to definitely have one padam or a javali, which requires so much more complexity. But Katherine Akka, would you have any thoughts about how you decide?
I try to keep the arangetrams to the senior year so that, first of all, they don't have the pressure of the next year because they're going to go off to college, but also because that gives them the maximum chance to gain maturity and understanding. I will allow, under certain circumstances, a 10th grader, if the grandparents are very ill and old and they want the grandparents to see it, I think that's a reasonable pressure to accept. Junior year, because it's hell in school, I discourage it, but mostly my students do it when in their senior year.
Okay, wonderful. So I have another question from Jayanti, which says, how do you instill your Bani in your students? Do you feel that this is extremely relevant? Do you allow for deviations? And if so, to what degree? So Viji, could you try and address that question about Bani? You spoke about the Tanjavur Bani earlier, the great parampara that you are from. And so please share your thoughts.
I think Tanjavur Bani is where I am from, and I'm so grateful that I studied from my gurus, and my guru is still alive, and I still communicate with him and get his ideas and whatever he thinks. I think C.V. Chandrasekhar once said, in Bharatanatyam, there is either good Bharatanatyam or bad Bharatanatyam. And I think when you have good Bharatanatyam, all the Banis, all the schools that they're all looking for the same thing: good Angashundam, clarity of expression, clarity of movement, clarity, integrity of purpose, the facial everything has to come together. And you can tell a dancer who has really worked on all this, even when she comes and stands there in the position. And I feel that is the credit to the Bani that you've studied from. Yes, I am Tanjavur Bani, but so you see so many, all of us dance differently, even though we have the name Tanjavur Bani. And I think a lot of that comes with the dancer spending time with the dance form and evolving the dance form based on her learning into something which has a little more clarity for herself and for her audience or her students.
Okay. I have a question from Malvika, which says, nowadays it seems like arangetrams have become almost like weddings in the amount of focus on things other than the dance itself, the lobby, decor, all of that. How have you tried to keep the focus on the quality of dancing other than the non-dance related aspects? So Indu, would you like to address that?
Niru, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, that is a big topic of discussion whenever parents come to me for planning purposes, right? I clearly tell them that the focus is going to be on the dance part of it, and then to keep aside the decorating and the backdrop setup and everything, even though it enhances, but keep it minimalistic so that the dance takes focus on that day instead of audience walking away feeling, oh, the lobby was awesome, and not mentioning the years of hard work that the child has put in. But then it is also, I also understand their perspective when they say that it is their the dream come true, you know, to put their child on stage and watching them perform. So they combine it as a graduation gift, invite all the folks, feed them dinner, and have actually a get together and party and celebrate the child ascending the stage. But if they were to not give not give importance to the dance part of it, then there's a problem. But if we insist that dancing takes the main form there, and let alone the social part of it or the snack part of it, then I guess it's okay, because after all, it is a celebration. It's years of hard work. As all of you said, I don't put my child on stage in 2 years' time. It takes a lot of learning. They need to understand what this art form is about. They have to evolve themselves. They need to bring in their touch, their soul into the item before they are ready to go on stage. So since it takes such a long process, it's a great journey for them. And many of them do not, there is an option available. They can perform, but many times when they become doctors and when they go elsewhere, there's no opportunity for them to continue. So that it's that on that day, it is a very special moment for the child to take the center stage and to have the friends and family watch and applaud.
Mythili, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say that the coronavirus crisis would have changed this perspective for everybody. Look at all the weddings that cannot be held and are becoming simple weddings. In the same manner, I think the Arangetrams also, if they go down to becoming a simple affair, and, you know, for instance, C.B. Chandrasekhar would not attend an Arangetram dinner ever. He'll come and watch the dance and then he'll leave. So my focus, I've been telling my students, occasionally they just want to have a celebration, but it's not a celebration. It's only a beginning. It's only a stepping stone. And when you think about this virus should have made you aware of the fact that there are so many people suffering. You cannot be spending $30,000 or $50,000 on just a Arangetram, which is what is happening. So that's my perspective.
Okay, so Chetana writes, knowledge and love for music and literature played a huge role in becoming good dancers and choreographers. And since we grew up in India, we learned a local Indian language, Sanskrit or Hindi, as part of the school curriculum. How do we pass on this exposure that we automatically got without any effort to kids who are growing up in a country away from India? Katherine Akka, do you have any things that you would like to add?
Many of my students speak their own native language at home. And
okay.
Some can even read and write in it. And I've learned all the songs that I teach word by word, so I can translate them word by word and make them understood to the students, whether they speak Tamil or not. It's a different world here, and we have to adjust to this world. My students who learn music as well are much better able to keep the beat and be with the music and saturate into the song. So that's a great advantage. But they don't all have that advantage. So we have to make do the best we can with what we have.
Okay. I have another question from Bala, who says, once the Arangetrams are done, what comes next for the kids? How do most of them stay involved and ensure that they don't forget their dance education? Viji, could you address that?
So the Arangetram process, I feel after the Arangetram, what next, right? For us who have done Arangetrams in India, we had sabhas and we had, my guru would reach out, my parents would reach out, and we would be performing for whichever. Very difficult here. So in a lot of ways, I feel after the Arangetram, it's my responsibility to somehow keep them in it if they are in town. If they are not in town and they come back in the summer, I've started doing this for the past few years, where I've pulled out one of my old productions and asked one of the students to restage it, or I would restage it, or she could choreograph it. So, and it gives the opportunity to the post-Arangetram people to come back into dance, so to say. So I feel that, and you know, I just feel responsible. I just feel, how else are they going to keep going at this? You know, there is no other sabha or some group, or like Mythili said, Karnataka. You know, none of all this happens. Even the temple programs, we do them, but that's not just the only way that keeps the post Arangetram people motivated. So hopefully this works.
Okay. I have one question from Shobana, which I think many of you will be able to talk about, but I'm going to ask Mythili to address this. Since music and dance are so connected, what advice do you have for parents of young kids to encourage appreciation for classical music that might help them with dance lessons later on?
You know, in many schools, they teach music as well as dance, you know. And I never did that because this Bay Area is so full of great musicians who have their own teaching institutions. I would always encourage everybody to go take lessons. And they were. My first batch of students did take a lot of music lessons. And if they couldn't really get it for whatever reason, you know, they wouldn't continue. But I've always encouraged them to go till the Swarajati or Varnam stage if they can, even if they were, you know, not South Indian, they were North Indian, and they didn't feel that they needed to learn anymore. I wanted them to learn so that they learn the talam and the aspects of, you know, the rhythms, the gatis and the jatis and all that. So once, I mean, I encourage them, and I keep having in our summer workshops, we keep having some musician come and give those workshops to them. But ultimately, it's their own, you know, talent. I have seen people, dancers who are not, who have taken, you know, very basic musical knowledge, but are fabulous dancers. So, you know, it's just an innate or you know, something intuitive within them that's making them that fabulous without even having had tremendous amount of music training. But music training, of course, is an essential part of learning the dance.
Okay, I can't get to, I think some of the questions we have already sort of touched upon in our talk, and I know Mythili wanted to keep this to about an hour. So I'm going to ask two questions which are really relevant to today's topic to all of you. I'm going to start with one about how have you, you know, what strategies have you used for Zoom classes that all of you are doing now? So how do you keep the interest alive for Zoom classes? Katherine, could you start, Akka?
I have to make them a little more exciting and fun than the live correspondence with the students. I have to play with them. I have to call them individually by name much more than I would in the classroom. I've seen more mistakes. I'm actually in kind of shock of how many technical issues need to be addressed in them when I see them all on the screen like this. And then I see their names also on there, so I can shout out to this one and that one. And then I let them do one by one, and they all watch. They all come up to the thing like this, and then they back again, so I can see their hands and feet and heads. It's an interesting challenge. It's not a great solution, but it works. And I never expected it to work. I'd never actually heard of Zoom before this.
That's the same thing for all of us.
Okay, Mythili, what about you? Anything to add to what Katherine Akka said?
I think Viji and I were talking before how frustrating it is to tell them, "No, this is my right, that's your left. This is, you know, go this way. Why aren't you understanding? I told you to go and kill the asura this side first. Why would I tell you to kill again in the same direction, kill in the opposite direction?" And I just scream at them sometimes because it's so frustrating. So it's a very frustrating experience. I feel that I have to do some makeup lessons once everything comes back to more normal to address all these you know, disadvantages of teaching online. I can't see them fully. I can't see their expressions fully. So there's a lot of you know, frustration in for them as well as me.
Yeah. Indu?
Yeah, I just started 2 days ago, mates. I have finished my second session on Zoom, and it's frustrating. There's a lag. You say something and it's executed 4 seconds after. So I don't know if they're doing it wrong or what is happening. And it's like you see 5 of them on the screen or 6 of them on the screen, and they are all tiny figurines. And as Katherine said, everything, it seems as if everything needs fixing because because so of course, it's not that when you see them in person. I'm sure they are sitting down Aramandi. The reason why I started was it's been 4 or 5 weeks in my case. I stopped the second week of March and I just started day before yesterday. And the 1 hour session took me 2.5 hours because I just, as Mythili said, scream, do this side, do that side, and all of that stuff. And I think this Zoom sessions can only be used to refresh the lessons that we've already learned. And I think we should send them a recording that Niru, you advised me to do that. So I think send them a recording and then let them watch, and hopefully this will end soon, the situation, and we can get back to our normalcy of having a face-to-face teaching session. Yeah, this can just be, we reviewed the items that we have learned, and that way it's not forgotten. But when we come back, all those technicalities should be fixed, of course.
Yeah, I have been actually pleasantly surprised by how well Zoom has worked at my end, because I've never done online classes before.
Me too.
And, starting out, I didn't know what to expect. And the first couple of days, I found that I was being very formal on screen for some reason and not chatting with them or talking to them, joking with them and all of that. So the last few weeks, I've just, and after the first couple of days, I changed my strategy and went back to being more natural, even though it is through the screen. And then, of course, you have to say, like Mythili said, I want you to do the adavu towards the couch, not towards the, so you can see their homes and everything. And so I've been playing little games with them, like go find 5 things in your house that are similar, who comes first back, with the little kids, to give them some encouragement, but and some feel of what it is to be in a regular class with human interaction. But a couple of weeks ago, I had this lovely moment where one of the students put her palm on the screen and she said, I really miss seeing you in class. I really miss being with you in the room and with all my friends. And that was so touching, for a young child to do that. And immediately all the children were also talking about how they miss being with others. So I think this is a temporary situation, and hopefully we will get out of it. Viji, do you have anything to add before I go on to the final question?
No, just that, the Zoom, I call it the Zooming class, but I've given them all a project. It's from my son's music that he's put out. It's called Greenwood, and they all have to choreograph and send me the videos of how they're feeling, what happened before this corona came, how they're feeling, and they just can do it in any mode of expression. Doesn't have to be Bharatanatyam. Some of them were popping, locking, turning cartwheels, adding Bollywood moves. I said anything, just express. So I'm waiting for the day we stop Zooming, but it has taught me so many things. I never thought I would do this. I'm kind of beginning to enjoy it and thinking, oh my God, I have to get off this couch in this chair. Oh my goodness. Yeah, but it has helped you, like Katherine said, see some of those things that you don't see in a group class. Because right and left is a problem. By the way, teachers, flip them to face the back and make them do right and left. It comes out perfect when they're not looking at the camera.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll end with this question, because I know that this topic really was addressing how we kindle this lifelong interest in dance and how we instill that. And there's this question from Anjana Sriram, who says, how did you make the transition from a dance student to a dance teacher? And who were your role models along the way, and what was your inspiration? So I thought that would be a lovely question to address from all of you, because really that is really the end goal, that the next generation of students takes this up, with the same passion and love and carries this forward. And a few times, even though, we are teaching in America and the narratives, we all know that we have to make that extra effort to communicate that to our students. There have been some instances where I have taught a student a padam and I've seen tears in their eyes in class. And when you see that, and when you see them emotionally moved by the narrative or by the song, then really you feel that your job is done, because then you know that they will take it forward. The little bit of that passion and that madness for the art form is forming in them at some deep level. So Katherine Akka, would you be able to talk about how you went from being a student to a teacher, and who your role models were?
I loved the teaching. Even in the beginning, when I was first at Kalakshetra and starting to learn the steps, I was the person who was allowed to carry Jaya teacher's stick around so she wouldn't lose it. And I took it back to the hostel and I practiced beating the rhythms. And then when I started learning dances, I would sing them and beat them. And I had a way of writing them out with heavy marks and light marks for the downstroke and the upstroke. And then I just really loved it. I remember one day I was taking class on a Sunday afternoon for my classmates, and I was singing the Varnam and beating it. And a teacher was in one of the offices, and she came over, and we thought, oh, what are we going to do? Just stop and run, or let's just keep going. So she came in and she said, I thought I heard some noise over here. And I said, teacher, that wasn't noise, that was music. And I loved it. So when I had too many injuries to keep dancing, this was really more to me than the dancing. I love it. Even now, I love it. I love the challenge of it. I love the challenge of trying to communicate to the kids. When I was with the Dhananjayans, they would go abroad for 2 months and say, here, it's your turn. You take the classes while we're gone. And I would have to do it. I would have to make it work. And
okay.
I loved it.
Okay. Mythili, what about you? How did you make that transition? Mythili, you have to unmute yourself.
So sorry. I actually already said this last week, but I'll repeat myself again. When I came here, as I was saying, I was doing 2 performances a month in India. And then I came here and I didn't have to look forward to anything but 2 performances maybe in a year. So then when some from friends of ours said, why don't you start teaching? That was when I started teaching in 1980 January in somebody's garage. I started very slowly with a few people, and I just kept going with other things, but that's how I started teaching. And I felt that teaching, you have to correct them, and when you correct them and when you show it yourself, it becomes a learning experience for you. So because of that, I really started loving it, because I'm correcting myself, I am getting better, as well as imparting something. So, and whenever we did Arangetams, we did new pieces. So every time I taught something, I would get something new. I'd be able to get a new story in, a new choreography, and a new jatti I would compose and put in. So it became a really challenge, not just a challenge, but a very inspiring and interesting experience for me to teach. So I loved it after that. But I was still dancing after I had the kids.
Yeah. Viji, what about you?
When I came here in 76, I was dancing in India, not as much as you, Mythili, though. But I used to come here, I'd practice with master's tapes, and I'd be crying. I had no intention to be a dance teacher. I just wanted to have babies and run a good domestic life. But and I would cry. So my guru told me, Kalyan Sundaram, he said, why don't you start teaching? Because when you start teaching, you will become a better dancer. So and there were some ISKCON students who wanted to learn, and they saw me perform, and I started teaching. And that's true, though, as you, like Mythili said, as you are communicating, you are seeing that awareness in, not just in them, but in your own dance. And I think later on, there's such an exhilaration when they dance properly, because there's such a part of you that's manifest in them. And it's almost like you are dancing. And now with old age and all the good stuff hitting, you really want them to see it do it well, because you want that part of you that to be there and get even better. I think that's what it is. Be even better than you ever were. And that's my prayer for all students.
Okay. Indu, what about you? That's so inspiring, Viji. Yeah.
The same, I loved dancing. I came here soon after college. And then the only way to keep in touch with this art form, as Mythili rightly said, not very many opportunities. So the best way to keep in touch would be through teaching. So I started off with 5 students and teach them, and in the process practice your items. And till date, the method I follow is to teach all of my guru's items first, get her blessings through me to the children, and then I start teaching them my choreographies. And helps in practicing on your own as well. So that was with no intent at all. There was no intention of me running a dance school or anything. Of course, I got into a family where my mother-in-law is a versatile, wonderful artist, dancer, a musician, a veena artist, and composer, all in one. She's a Sakalakala Naiki, and she's of course Srimati Ranganaiki Jayaraman, and I'm blessed to be part of that family. And so there was no plan as such to start any kind of an institution. It just happened because this was the only way I could keep in touch with what I love to do most, and it worked out. I love kids, so it was a great opportunity to have them home and dancing again, something that I enjoyed, and it's been 30 plus years now.
So with that, I have to say, I hope that we will be able to get, we went over time a little bit, about 15 minutes over the time that we were initially planning. But we had a wonderful discussion, and looking at the questions, I didn't get to all of the questions that were posted. I think that all of the listeners and viewers were, are really involved. And I think I can speak for all of you when I say that the work that we do is supported by this community of people who chose to spend part of their Saturday afternoon with us, those who come bring their children to class, and those who come to performances, and those who come and speak backstage, and those who are in some way or other moved by art. And really, that's what we are looking for, right? We want to have those simple moments where we are one with the dancer, or one with the dance, or one with the music. And I think that's the love, and that's the, the craziness, the madness that set us on this path, all the panelists. And judging by the questions and judging by the interest, I think we have this wonderful community of young students, dancers, and rasikas who support us. So I think the future looks bright. And I think we should have more discussions like this, because it really breaks those silos that we all work in. Each of us dedicated and passionate in what we do, but coming together like this to talk about these issues is really a wonderful opportunity. So thank you so much, Mythili. And of course,
thank you,
and
Mythili,
congratulations
for bringing us all together.
Oh, sorry, Mythili has something to say.
I just want to sum it up saying that, thank you, Nirupama, for being a wonderful moderator. Thank you, all the dance teachers, on behalf of Abhinay Dance Company and behalf of all our students. I'm so glad you were all able to join us and present all your wonderful points of view and opinions. And I'm so happy. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mythili.
And thank you, audience, for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Inspiring us with your questions.